Open workout 23.2. This one is a doozy of a couplet of shuttle runs and burpee pull-ups. So the key to this workout is 100% having a consistent movement pattern on both the burpee pull-ups and the shuttle runs, and consistent pacing, and both those things are kind of tied together. The way I like to think about a setup like this is that your movement pattern dictates your pace. So that way you don't have to worry about, am I going too fast or am I going too slow? If you're following your movement pattern in your controlled manner, that is your correct pace. So to start with the burpee, I highly recommend a step. You can step or jump back. The back's not such a big deal. But on the way up, we certainly want to step up, then meet your feet. As you meet your feet, you are going to lift up and jump in one fluid motion, rather than having to do your burpee. So if I do my burpee, and then I stand up, and now I have to re-hinge. And that's an unnecessary motor pattern. It's just gonna cause you extra fatigue for no benefit. So do your best while you can to have that be in one fluid motion. It looks something like this. Okay, now the strict pull-up, if you jump and do the strict pull and finish it out that way, obviously that's more taxing, but it is faster. So if these are easy for you to start with, I think it's totally fine to start there. But as soon as they start getting difficult and you're having to kind of eke that pull-up out, it's time to move to kipping. Moving to kipping, there is a huge necessary piece of information here, and that's jumping up into a hollow position. The worst thing that can happen is when you start jumping up and doing your kipping pull-up, you have to generate the tap swing every time. That takes way too much time and energy. So we need to make sure that when we jump up to the pull-up bar, when you jump up, you need to elevate your toes into a hollow position. That way, as we grab the bar, it then swings you through into your arch, and now you're ready to pop for your kipping pull-up. And it looks something like this. Okay, so now that generates the kip effectively, rather than jumping up, swinging, and having to get this going, and now come up into your pull-up. So make sure you jump up into that piked hollow position and catch. That will swing you through, and then you have your kipping pull-up. So on the burpees, know what you're gonna do. If you think you're gonna jump back and step up with your left foot, practice that and know how you do it. That way, all you have to focus on is moving the exact same every time, and that will help keep you on pace better than any am I going too fast or am I going too slow thought. Just move the same every time. On the shuttle runs, now, same concept. This is my suggestion of how your motor pattern should be. But as long as you have your pattern set and you are doing a deliberate step pattern, then you're good. Where we start wasting time is when you get a lot of extra shuffles in with your feet. That's where time gets lost. So if we have our tape line here, I'm gonna be running across, it's nice and slow-mo like. Then I'm going to reach across with one foot, and that's my lead leg. If that's my lead leg is my left, I'm gonna turn inside, okay? So I always go inside. So in this situation, I will turn right away from that lead leg. As I bend down, I will then touch with my left hand. So that way we have a cross-body touch here. Then I can power out of the turn, all right? So now watching that a little bit more at normal speed, I'm gonna lead with my left leg over the tape, which means I turn inside, turn into my hips, and then touch the ground with my left hand. Here we go. Okay, now if I'm gonna do the opposite, I'll go the other direction. Okay, I'm gonna lead with my right, turn into the hip, right hand goes down. And this way, we are hinging and using your hips, and you're not necessarily just bending over, okay? We want to actually use your hips and legs to go down and touch the ground. This is also now a more powerful starting point to come out of the hole and be fast into your next rep. So no matter how you do this, I think there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat and how you turn, but as long as you know what you're doing and you can plan for that and turn this into a little bit of a rhythm or almost like into a little bit of a goofy dance, Keep that consistent, and that will help keep your pacing consistent. So the last thing about pacing is the first round is a trap. There's no need to blow your heart rate out the gates. So in the first round, try to treat it as like an aggressive warm up and just figure out your movement patterns, settle in, and start to get into your rhythm. As soon as you guys get done with the 15-minute AMRAP of 23.2A, we start 23.2B, which is that 1 rep max thruster. Now they say that this can be done in any fashion from the floor. We can do a power clean and then go into a thruster, or we can do a squat clean into a thruster. Here's your pros and cons. The pro of doing a squat clean thruster is that it's less time under tension. The con is that if you're out of position, you're hosed. So for the extreme majority of us, a power clean, get yourself squared away, and then a thruster is gonna be the correct option. Okay, now you can do the squat clean thruster, and that looks like this. Now, the way that I would tell you to do this is to warm up and do every rep the way you would expect to hit your top lift. So if you know when you get into your heavier loads, your front rack is a little bit goofy and you might need to have an adjustment, and you know you're gonna wanna power clean, reset a little bit, and then go for a thruster, do that from the get-go. You don't wanna have to switch your motor pattern up in the middle of your lifting session. So pick one, feel it out both ways, and decide which one you're more comfortable with, and then roll with that the whole way. Now, 5 minutes. That is not a long time. That is gonna go so fast. If you watched the athletes, Roman and Pat that went, they didn't even get to the bar until about a minute onto that clock. And that was just them changing their shoes. So the time goes fast. My advice to you is open up with a weight that there is no chance whatsoever that you could miss, especially because we can get help loading your barbell, and you can have some of your buddies load the bar for you. There's no downside to just getting a rep in the books with something that's crazy light, get that motor pattern geared up, and get ready to start rolling. You saw Roman started at 135 and finished at 295 was his last successful lift. So it's okay to start light. You do not want to fail the first lift or struggle the first lift, because that is a wrecker of your confidence going into the later one. So start light. Now, when you guys do this as far as the hands, this is kind of a weird setup. I like to thruster with a suicide grip, okay? Personally, I like to thruster this way with my thumbs behind the bar. I feel a little bit more confident pressing from this position. So that means for me, I would have to then do my clean with that suicide grip, so I can plan on having that as I rotate through. Having to readjust mid-lift is gonna be difficult. So if you know that you thruster with that suicide grip, you might, it's not technically the way I would teach someone to do a clean, but that will help you transition into the front rack better for that thruster. So start with that suicide grip on your clean. Now, if you're one of the people that has trouble with the front rack, I highly suggest doing your power clean and practice getting into the front rack even if you lose a pinky. Meaning, this happens to so many people, okay? At this point, you go one hand at a time to readjust that pinky under. So I'll get my air and I will dip and pop and get one side, and then I will dip and pop and get the other side. If you try both at once and you're not used to this, it's probably a little bit much at one time. So one side and the other is typically a good starting point if you lose your pinky in front of the bar. Finally, with the thruster, try to get your air once you get the bar set into your power clean position. Fill up with air, get good and tight, and then as you go through your rep, do not exhale until you finished your rep. When we start exhaling during the squat, you're losing that internal pressure, and we don't have as much to brace as we go forward. So make sure you get that air and hold that, stay tight during the rep. Weight choices. if you start to feel like you had a little bit of a struggle with a thruster or a push press in general, as soon as it gets heavy, it gets impossible pretty quick. So if you had a little bit of a sticky rep, it's time for a small jump. Don't take a 20 or 30 pound jump if you had even a little bit of struggle to get up. Take that smaller jump. It's always better to get 5 pounds extra and make it than do 10 pounds extra and fail. So make sure to be smart about your weight selections, focus on your movement patterns, and have a fun time with this one.